Hello everyone, welcome to yet another video, and in this video we're doing a bit of a discussion. Now the last time we did one of these discussion type videos was, got to be October now, wasn't it, when we did the video where we were discussing the diamond races in the Isle of Wight.
Which isn't happening. I think that was lockdown 88.
That was, yeah. Nope, that's not happening this year, is it now, sadly, but...
No.
Actually,
but that would have been good to go and watch, let's face it.
Yeah, but never mind. Anyway, I'm joined on this lovely little chat by my podcasting co-host Carlos, with a lot of C's in that little bit of speech there. But never mind. Let's get on with it. So this particular video, we are looking at the Formula One 2021 season. There's quite a bit of changes going on with it, really. But although on the surface, at least, there's not that much changing, but behind the scenes, there is quite a lot of changing, so it's mainly sort of downforce and aerodynamic changes which are going on. So I think we should start off by looking at what's changing between 2020 and 2021.
Yes, well, it is. Well, the whole thing now is all around budgets, isn't it? As well, we're trying to get the money out of F1, which I think we'll come to later on. But I think they always try this game of. Well, I mean. Jake knows I work in engineering, I have all my life, and the thing with engineers is that if you say you can't do that, here's the limitation, they'll usually find a way around the limitation and make it even better than it was.
Yeah, it's basically a case of what the rules don't say more than what they do say.
Yeah, exactly. And probably over the years, as F1 fans know, the double diffuser that Braun said, that was a loophole in the legal. There's a loophole there. Nobody picked up on it except him, and he created a double diffuser, and then they just smashed the opposition into next week. You know, superb. Probably a superb illustration of the rule, how the solicitors read the rules. You know, and then the engineers read it.
Yeah, because later on you also had teams such as Red Bull joining in with the, adding a double diffuser to their own car.
Yeah, when it was too late. Yeah, but it's, and like I say, you work with these people and they are proper geniuses sometimes, and there's, over the years it's been the fan car that Gordon Murray designed, which is coming back again in his road car. I think it's illegal though. I think there's a ruling you can't use it on the road.
Isn't it called, isn't his company something like GMD, and it's the T50?
Something like that.
Something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's, to be fair, in terms of looks, it's kind of a mix between Pagani and McLaren. Obviously, as we know, he designed the McLaren F1, but it's very much a sort of modern take on that car. But beside the point of, non-Formula One related topics, such as road cars designed by people who obviously made F1 named road cars. Let us discuss the changes going through from 2020 to 2021. So there are obviously livery differences between the teams, as they're all trying to sort of differentiate themselves between last year and this year, of course. Yeah,
I'm just going to, while you're chatting, I'm just going to pull up some of the images of them. Because there have been some quite stark changes, haven't there, in the liveries?
There have. Yes, definitely. But I think we should talk about first the major changes behind how the cars are actually going to drive on track. We'll move on to liveries later on, say which ones we like, which ones we don't necessarily like too much. But for now, let us look at the changes. I've got them listed all just down here to my left. Your right, as you can see it on screen. So the changes are going as follows. The teams will be carrying their chassis through from 2020 through to 2021. But they can make changes as long as they were within the newly implemented two-token system. Now, basically, for those who don't know, but then again, if you don't know, why are you watching this video? It's mainly for people who know what it incorporates for 2021. But yes, the two-token system basically allows for teams to make specific changes as long as they're within some regulations and all that stuff. It's a quite complicated thing, and as we've said already before, teams tend to read what it doesn't say more than what it does say. But the two-token system's been brought in. This is going to be used for major updates or upgrades, meaning that teams have to be more selective over what they hope will gain them quicker lap times than their rivals. As far as I'm aware, there's only 2 teams which have spent at least one major token, well, one token even, on their chassis. They may even have spent 2, and that is McLaren, because they're integrating the new Mercedes power unit to their car, having previously run Renault, as we know, which actually proved to be quite successful for them in 2020. They did very well with Renault.
Yeah.
But changing to Mercedes power, McLaren's view is very much, this is the benchmark at the minute, this is the one that we want. Which, from that point of view, it makes sense. The McLaren that exists in 2020 is very different from the McLaren we saw in 2014, when they sort of said you can never win as a customer, and then obviously signed with Honda, and we know how McLaren's relationship with Honda went at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so McLaren are one of the teams which have spent at least a token, if not both of them, on their chassis side of things. I will say, in terms of McLaren, they are the only team, I believe, that's out of all of the teams on the grid you can maybe class as bringing a car that's even remotely fully new. Because all of the changes they've had to make to integrate the Mercedes power unit would be many of the changes the team would make, between off-season and the new season anyway. So, from that point of view, they've got a new car. The only other team, I believe, which have spent tokens on the chassis side of things is the newly rebranded Racing Point team, as they are now called Aston Martin, because they are integrating some of the Mercedes 2020 rear suspension to their car. So that is some of the larger changes. You've also got changes to the car floors, which obviously is going to go out through the whole grid. This will affect the aerodynamics and the overall downforce of the car, which could make things quite interesting. As we know, certain teams are better at dealing with downforce than other teams. I mean, Red Bull has been a team which has been pretty much always up the top with their downforce levels and aerodynamics in recent years. Mercedes has definitely caught up on that front. You can argue that for many, many days, but yeah, that could definitely spice up the order, I think. You've also got rear brake duct winglets will be shortened, which will affect the downforce levels of the cars as well. The rear diffuser, we spoke about that a little bit earlier on for the blown diffuser, but the rear diffuser fences, those are the little spikes that come out the bottom, it all affects aerodynamic flow and drag and everything else like that. They're going to be shortened, which will again affect downforce. Probably one of the biggest changes they're going into 2021 is that there's going to be a cost cap. So would you like to elaborate a little bit more on that, Carlos, if you can?
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is it's just, I mean, teams were spending hundreds of millions of pounds on basically developing a car, especially Mercedes, and the only way you can stop people is by capping the budget. And I think, is it coming in with the driver's wage as well?
I believe the driver's wages don't come into it.
But was that next year? I think they're on about doing that though, aren't they?
I think they are, but I don't think it's for 2021.
No, but I think that's in the pipeline, which you sort of... Well, I think we'll come on to that when we talk about driver lineups, because I think there's going to be some drastic changes probably next year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, capping that, and there's also the weight amount. If you spend X amount, isn't there, in the wind tunnel, there's all these sorts of different, well, you're probably more attuned to it than I am, but I think for me, that is the key thing, is to try and cap how much money you spend, because, these teams spending $500 million on developing a car is unfair to Williams, who were, as we know, Williams were an amazing team back in the day when they were just pure British genius engineers, and so it's just that case of flinging money at it, and it's just, and this then you start talking about, do you have one make series, Formula E, not bursting into that, is proven to be quite entertaining, and it's all sort of similar level cars. But on the flip side, if you don't want to stop people from building F1 cars because they develop engineering techniques out of that end up in our road cars. So
definitely.
It's just a real, I wouldn't know which way to go. I think budget capping is a good way forward. But as we all know, with COVID, the revenue isn't there this year in all sports. The money isn't there, and they're having to deal with that. Sorry, Jake, if you want to interrupt me.
No, it's quite good what you're saying there. No, obviously 2021 was going to be the year of the brand new regulations for the cars, of course, but due to a person eating a bat somewhere in the world, that's all been pushed back another year.
Licking a pangolin or something, yeah.
Yeah, but that's all been pushed back another year now, so of course everything's basically the same as 2020, but it's different in the ways that we're saying now. You've also mentioning the budget cap, the set budget for each team for, I believe, coming into this year, that is $145 million, which is still a lot of money at the end of the day, but it's not as much as many of the top F1 teams, such as maybe Mercedes or Red Bull or Ferrari, or maybe even potentially McLaren or Renault, which is now Alpine, or even Racing Point, which is now Aston Martin, of course. They could all throw potentially more money than that at their cars, but they're not allowed to now, essentially. So this will affect every aspect of running a current Formula One team on the grid.
Yeah, absolutely.
So apparently this will not affect the marketing costs, so teams can sort of throw whatever money they want at, deals and all that other good stuff. I mean, of course, we've got Aston Martin this year entering their car for a safety car. And, of course, medical car, you can't forget that as well. So they're going to be sort of switching duties with Mercedes and things like that. Just, makes it a bit more interesting. Sorry, voice going a bit there. But, it makes it a bit more interesting with having an Aston Martin at the front of the grid rather than a Mercedes, to put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we'll come on to that, but I think that you're right. I mean, when you have a billionaire owner of a Formula One team who's, making more money a second than we'd ever dream of, then, he's going to spend it, and he's going to be spending it. Well, again, we'll come on to drivers. There's all these rumours about Lewis Hamilton and all sorts.
Yes.
So we'll come on to that. But yeah, I mean, you're right. But like I said, my fear is, if you do tap them, where we want to push on that technology, because Formula One came up with crash cells and all these sorts of safety devices, and I think that's very important. And the only way you do that is if you throw money at that project that you're working on. I work in an industry that we talk about millions of pounds as if they're 20 quid. It's just like it just becomes a number, but you do get something at the end of it. But like with Formula One, a lot of Formula One technology ends up in aircraft manufacture as well, when it used to be the other way around in the 60s. Formula One used to go to the aircraft manufacturers to see what they were doing, but now a lot of the Eurofighter, F1 teams are involved. So it shows how far up the technology tree that F1 is, right at the top.
Yeah, definitely.
There or thereabouts.
Definitely. But the only exceptions to the budget of $145 million are marketing costs, driver salaries, the salaries of the three highest earners in the team. Those are not included, the three highest salaries. Neither are the costs of employees' maternity, paternity and sick leave, as well as the cost of medical benefits for team personnel and redundancy packages, which of course, unfortunately, in 2020, a lot of redundancies were made. I mean, in fact, I was one of them, lost my job in 2020, but it's one of those things. But yeah, just coming on to a point you made there, though, Carlos, safety. I suppose we can't talk about 2020, 2021 without the mention of that massive fireball accident that Romain Grosjean suffered.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm a little bit older than you, Jake.
Are you? I hadn't noticed.
A little bit. Down by the white beard. So just briefly, I don't remember Lauda when he crashed at Nürburgring. I was alive at that point. I was 5 or 6. So I remember early 80s when I started first watching F1. And all the time I've watched F1 or any form of motorsport, I think that was one of the most shocking accidents I've ever seen. I think the one with the girl at Macau, I can't remember that young female driver's
Oh,
name.
Sophia Flörsch.
Yeah, when she went backwards, that is just horrible, horrific accident. Couple of motorbike racing accidents, but to see that was just sickening to watch. And well, we talked about it yesterday, didn't we? That
We did, yeah,
if
off
Roman
camera.
had done that 2 or 3 years ago, he would be dead. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Um,
There was a lot
uh,
of negativity towards the Halo at the start when it was introduced, but
very much so. Yeah,
I think it's definitely proven itself now.
yeah. And I mean, I don't know about you, Jake. Uh, I watch other forms of motorsport. I'm very into like endurance racing. I like that. I like Le Mans and all that sort of thing. But it was good to see Roman is down in doing IndyCar this year.
Yes.
But I watched something on TV on one of the American news channels showing him talking about his accident, and they showed his hands, and I couldn't. And we spoke about it. You couldn't believe how badly damaged his hand was. One hand is much better, but he was burned really badly. I think they're not letting on at how badly he actually was burnt. I think it was he burnt his feet as well, evidently. His shoe came off.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Well, his shoe got stuck in the car, didn't it? He literally pulled his foot out to get out of the car.
So I'm glad he's a lot better. I think there's always been, he could have been a lot better than he was. I think he was a bit temperamental in his driving, but he was a good driver. I think on his day he would perform.
Yeah, on his day he was certainly quick.
Yeah. You like Jarno Trulli. I always remember Jarno Trulli, the one lap specialist, mental fast, but then, getting into a race and he just fade off, which is sad. And I hate saying that because all these F1 drivers are actually, well, I suppose we're going to talk about one of them coming in this year, but a lot of those drivers are there on merit. They are really good drivers,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, we got to mention that pay drivers.
Yeah.
They're always going to be a part of F1, but just because they're pay, some of them could actually be quite good. I mean, Perez, he was a pay driver originally. I'm not sure on his status now. Obviously, being with a team like Red Bull, and of course Niki Lauda, he was a pay driver originally.
Yeah, he's a great character, Niki Lauda. I remember all that, but so I'm glad he's on the mend, and I think he's going to make a full recovery. And he's got a great crash helmet at the moment. He's got his kids and the design.
That is quite nice.
So it's so good luck to him, and may he get well again, and hope he enjoys. I mean, I'd love to, get kicked out of F1 and go to IndyCar. More than me.
No.
So there you go. That's my view on it all.
Yeah. His crash was certainly one of the most horrific things to come out of 2020, with F1 speaking, of course.
Yeah.
There are obviously much worse things in the wider world, of course. But in Absolutely. Formula One, that was definitely one of the more shocking things to see out of 2020.
Mm. Yeah, but, I mean, it was like watching a plane crash.
It was.
That was it, and I think it was 67G or something when he...
67, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy,
Of course, they just revealed all the figures from it, so...
Yeah.
It's still fairly fresh in everyone's minds.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was... He's a lucky boy.
He is.
He had his lucky pants on that day, for sure.
Sure did. But yes, some of the changes, still going back to that. We get rather sidetracked with all this, talking about Formula 1, don't we, really? Yep. But I think it was important to cover Grosjean, of course, because it was one of those... It was an event that was never going to happen, but then it did, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Grosjean's crash was definitely one of those things which was never seen to ever happen, but unfortunately it's one of those things that ended up happening. So there we go. Formula One, no matter how safe it says it is, there is always going to be that element of danger.
Absolutely, definitely.
All right, let's go back to the changes between 2020 and 2021, because of course, although safety doesn't really play that much of a part in the changes between 2020 and 2021, obviously they'll probably do things now to the overalls and things like that, gloves, helmets,
Yeah,
shoes, so that they don't get stuck in the cockpit or melt or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah, they'll probably make changes like those behind the scenes, or their separate suit manufacturers. But yeah, talking about the cars, there has been a weight increase to both the car and engine, which has been made to allow money to be saved on less exotic materials to build the cars with. This is obviously to fit in with the new budget cap as well, because of course teams that end up spending a lot of money on larger resources to try and make their engines lighter but faster, or more combustion cars lighter, you get the picture.
yep.
They're going to be spending a lot more money than a team that's maybe using old-fashioned steel or iron or whatever, But yeah, that's going to be playing into it. There's also going to be a lot more of a clampdown on teams copying parts from other teams. So, of course, we know all about the pink Mercedes, as it was dubbed, or Tracing Point, which is one of my personal favourite names last
Tracing
year.
point, that's very good. I
It
like
was quite
that,
good.
tracing point.
That was one of my
Yeah,
personal favourites from last year, but
yeah.
there's been a bit of a clampdown between seeing teams which have been copying other cars. Supposedly, they are still allowing teams to, photograph other teams' cars and things like that, but they're not allowed to go in with 3D cameras or have access to blueprints and all that other stuff. So that's obviously going to change things up a little bit. But you've also got, what else? Pirelli. Of course, this is not necessarily to do with the cars themselves, but to do with, obviously, the tyres, the things that actually grip the tarmac. Pirelli, they're bringing some new tyre compounds in for 2021. This does actually have the potential to spice up the pecking order, I think, because certain teams can make tyres work better than other teams. I mean, we saw we saw in 2019 that Haas couldn't make their tyres work that well, which was rather unfortunate for the team because they weren't doing that
No,
great on track that year. Unfortunately, when you think 2018, they finished, what, fifth, wasn't it?
something like that. They were really high up
They're
for,
fifth behind Renault, I
yeah,
think it was.
yeah.
But
It's,
either way, that sort of signifies the importance of getting your tyres switched on. But also, we did get a good example of that in 2020 at Turkey, actually, I thought, with Racing Point.
yeah,
They managed to get their tyres turned on in qualified P1 and 2, None of the other teams did that. Well, obviously, but none of the other teams could get the tyres switched on in quite the same way. So,
yeah.
you know,
It just proves how important that tyres. Well, a combination of having a good tyre, a good setup of the car, and more importantly, if you have a guy like Checo who is renowned for being able to make a set of tyres last an eternity in the F1 world, it's just such a great advantage, And for me, though, on tyres, I don't understand why we only have one manufacturer of tyres. I think we need to have that Michelin or whoever or
Michelin versus Bridgestone stuff again.
Bridgestone or even more because Pirelli always claim they're the world champions in F1. Well, yeah,
They're the only ones in F1.
yeah, I could be the world champion eating family-sized pavlones if I wanted to, if I just go down and do it, But going back to what you're saying, yeah, you're right. It's the tyres could make that different, and tyres do make different over years and years and years. You'll remember the American race when only 6 cars started, whatever it was.
Yeah, Indianapolis 2005, wasn't it, that one?
Yeah, because they couldn't rate the tyre safety.
No.
So there's demonstrations of why tyres are,
Yeah.
so important.
And getting those tyres switched on, of course, and Racing Point a P2 finish at Turkey last year, of course,
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
the guy who started on pole, Lance Stroll, he sort of dropped back throughout the race.
yeah,
But as you just mentioned, Checo, he's very good at keeping his tyres alive for long periods of time. So,
yeah.
and he got
So,
a P2 out of it behind obviously the dominant force that was the Mercedes, driven by Lewis Hamilton, and ahead of
yeah,
Sebastian Vettel in the Ferrari.
yeah. So that's he did well, and that's a skill that was on merit. He didn't gain that through anything else. So it is a demonstration of how important the black round things are.
Yeah, and of course later on the year, Perez did obviously get that P1 at was it the Sakir Grand Prix?
Yeah,
It's
quite
'cause-
rightly deserved as well.
yeah, Yeah, that's a whole discussion in its own right, obviously. Very disappointing
Yeah,
for George Russell, who was obviously on to win his first ever race in Formula One.
yeah,
But if anyone else was going to win, I'm glad it was Perez, personally.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean the whole race was a disaster for McLaren, for Mercedes. But yeah, you're right. If it's everybody wanted to see Checo win because he's a class driver, and I
Mm.
actually do think he, in the right situation, he could be world champion. I think he is that good.
Considering as
Uh,
well that he's, well, on lap one of that race, fell to the back of the grid by quite some way as well to get up
yeah,
to win the race, you know.
yeah. I
Impressive,
know
impressive stuff.
luck plays a part in it, but
Mm.
this, the winner of the race is the first person across the checkered, going to pass the checkered flag, and that's it. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, well deserved win for him, and for Racing Point really because they have stuck at it
Oh, yeah,
and taken.
definitely.
We digress again.
Yes. What else has changed? Mercedes dual axis steering, or DAS, that has now been
Yeah,
banned for 2021, so they won't get any
yeah.
tyre warming advantages from that.
I did
Uh,
see it in action a couple of times. I didn't really pay much attention, I'll be honest, but I did see it a couple of times in
no,
interviews.
I don't,
Weird.
I don't think visually we'd have seen much difference, but in terms of how the
Yeah,
car drove, I'm sure there's some
yeah.
differences there. What
But
else?
weird.
More.
Yeah, sorry.
No, no. Feel free to add
No,
on that if
no,
you want.
no. Okay. Oh, yeah, go.
Oh, okay. More eco-friendly materials have been allowed to be used in Formula One, which may boost a team forward depending on how they can integrate those materials. So more eco-friendly fuels and things like that, and just stuff behind the scenes. It all depends on how a team reads those rules and things like that. So that's also got
Yeah.
potential to spice things up.
I mean, I
Um,
know I don't. I mean, we're slightly digressing, but and I don't know the full facts of it yet because I haven't read up on it or read it. Is that Porsche is allegedly thinking about coming into F1? But I think there's a link between them coming into F1 and them having use of their new synthetic fuels that they're supposed to be developing. So
yeah,
I'm not going to go into it too much because I'll be honest, I don't know that much about it. So I think that's going to be a time will tell thing. And,
yeah.
but
I think
it,
every year though, we
it,
seem to get an article on Volkswagen Group entering Formula One somehow though.
I think they're courted to come into it. I think they are, the Ross Brauns of the world, and even before them, Bernie Ecclestone for all his double-handing, backhanding deals. He always wanted to try and get them in. It's, having VW Audi Group into a Formula One championship is a massive thing.
I will
It's
say,
huge.
I will say one thing on that actually. You got the new CEO of Formula One, of course, Dominicali. You know,
Yes.
he used to be the top guy of Lamborghini, which of course is part of that Volkswagen Group as well. So that could be an enticing thing for them as well,
And I like
potentially.
him. When you see him in interviews, he's very, very good.
Oh yeah,
Very
definitely.
like to watch and listen to. And yeah, you're right. He's just come out the back of Lamborghini, and what a choker of a job that was. You know. So, but yeah, no, go on. Sorry,
No,
Joe.
no, there's literally only one more thing in terms of the changes. And it doesn't actually directly affect the 2021 season, but it does affect things going forwards. You sort of briefly looked at it earlier on in this chat, but it was to do with the aero sliding scale. So basically,
Hmm.
the higher up the constructors table a team finished in 2020, this will give them less tunnel time, wind tunnel time
Yeah,
during the 2021 season, which obviously will ultimately be used towards going for the 2022 car, for the big regulation change. So a team like Williams, which is always, well, has been in recent years towards the back of the grid, if not right at the
yeah,
back, that extra bit of wind tunnel time could do them the world of good, compared to, say, Mercedes, which are obviously going to get less amount of time.
yeah. I think that. I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but obviously they carry a lot of data over from what testing they do now, and obviously you have CAD testing and all that sort of thing, so modelling. But I think it's a good way of going around it to have that scale. But I just feel like sometimes though it could just not mean anything because they've got all the data already
Oh, I know what
from
you mean.
for a few years. So, but again, I hope I'm wrong. And we want to see teams like Williams move up the ranks, obviously, with
I think
the
they
British
will.
team.
I think
It's
they
not far
will.
from America. Yeah, I know. I think they will do.
I think they will,
So,
especially with the new investment they've got from Dorilton Capital and things like that.
yeah. I think BWT are rumouring to go with them as well.
They've recently just
Wait,
re-signed with Aston Martin, but as a
oh,
not as title sponsor though.
right, okay. But I think, yeah, they were courting other teams, not just Williams. So,
They're having a look at Haas and Williams, I think, but
yeah.
nothing came of it, as it turned out.
Yeah,
Uh,
like I say, Williams aren't too far from where I work, and we've had Williams electric cars in our
ooh,
chassis, on show and off in our atrium at work. So it's quite cool. We get to see a bit of
exciting.
their engineering side. So there's two halves that business.
Yeah, of course.
But anyway, again, I digress. Go on.
Yeah. But I think that sort of brings the differences between 2020 and 2021. I know we spent quite a
Yeah,
bit of time on it already, but there's quite a few changes, despite not really visually there being that much difference between the cars. Obviously, other than liveries, but that's a whole other topic in its own right. But the next thing sort of really is power units, of course. The big driving force behind the cars, quite literally the driving force behind them,
yeah.
Without a power unit, you're Fred Flintstoning it most of the time. But yeah, supposedly there are two manufacturers bringing power units with either a new layout or massive upgrades to them. And those are going to be Honda and Ferrari. There's also going to be the other two, Mercedes and Renault or Alpine, whichever the engine's branded as this year. I'm not personally quite sure. I believe it's still going to be a Renault engine, but the team is Alpine. So for anyone who's confused with this, I'm still just going to call the engines Renault because I believe that's what they're going to be called. Don't quote me on that. Thatcher engine.
The Thatcher Formula One team.
To be fair, I quite like that personally. I like that sort
Oh,
of
as well, that'd be brilliant.
thing. No. To be fair, there is, going slightly off topic, there is a Renault Sandero RS in South America.
Is there really?
There really is, yeah.
Knowing you have got such a strange fetish for weird cars. For someone of your age, I think it's brilliant. But
Oh, it's not weird, it's just a personal preference.
at your age, I wasn't thinking Rover, but
Oh
or
dear.
Leyland.
Oh.
Anyway, come on, get back to the car.
All right. We keep getting sidetracked, don't we, with this? But yeah. Mercedes and Renault or Alpine, they're sticking with their current layouts, but they're bringing smaller upgrades to them to obviously make more power. Or reliability, depends on which side of things they've been focusing. I mean, Renault were throughout 2020 focusing more on the reliability side of things. As we know, in 2019 they were not necessarily the most reliable car on the grid. But throughout 2020 they certainly did improve on their reliability. So I think in 2021, 2021 Renault are looking just to improve the power now rather than the reliability because they feel they've gotten on top of that. Mercedes, on the other hand, they're pretty good on reliability, but they're pretty good on power as well. But supposedly in the off season they found an extra 20 to 30 horsepower.
Just mad.
It's devastating.
It's crazy. Didn't go and spend another 20 horsepower.
Yeah.
It was probably there all along. They just never used it. And
It's devastating in terms of Formula One because, as we know, a second is a lot in Formula One. 20 to 30 horsepower in terms of overall.
Yeah.
Big change. But yeah, that's one of those things. But I will say the Honda engine is quite interesting because it's a bit of a long one. But the God, I'm losing my voice tonight.
Although 6 weeks smoking.
Yeah, obviously. But no, 2021 was obviously going to be the year of the new regs, as we know. But then obviously a man-hater bass and it was all pushed back to 2022. Honda were developing a new engine for the 2021 regs, which will then, push back to 2022 to match the new car, which is obviously going to be powered by Honda. But then after they made this decision, sometime, when was it? September last year? August, September?
Something like that.
something like that. Honda decided, no, Formula One is not for us anymore. It's not fitting with our company image of being more green and things like that. So they've decided to pull out at the end of the upcoming season, which obviously, as we now know, Red Bull have taken over the production, or will
Yeah.
take over the production of the Honda engine. They'll just rebrand it as a Red Bull powertrain, whatever they want to call it. But the thing is, 2021 is going to be quite interesting for Honda, I think. And do you know why?
Is it they're going to start making Ferris wheels?
No,
Okay,
believe it
I
or
don't
not.
know then.
No, it's because they're leaving at the end of this year. Honda as a brand have got nothing to lose, particularly. They can
No,
throw,
that's a good call actually.
they can
Because
literally throw everything at their engine and just see what happens.
it's unusual because they've not. This is not the first time they've done this,
No.
did they? And what you say, it's not in their sort of brand identity having in Formula One, but they still produce a road-going motorcycle with like 210 horsepower. And you're going, surely that can't be in your
Yeah.
DNA of what you want a green environmental issue thing.
No, it's about
It,
going forwards, I think, more than looking back, though.
yeah, yeah, I know. It's just, yeah, I don't know. Well, this is they've not done this. This is not the first time they've pulled out of the sport as a drop of a hat, especially F1 and left teams in the lurch. So I think they did it to McLaren in the 80s, 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then it
So,
happened in the end of 2008 when, of course, Brawn then took over for the
of course,
2009
yeah,
season, which they,
yeah,
God, what a story that was. But, but
amazing.
literally Honda chassis, Honda everything, base car, shoehorn a Mercedes power unit in. Somehow it worked. Won the championship, both of them, constructors and drivers.
Yeah,
I honestly believe we're never going to see anything like that ever again.
you'll never see that again. It's just that it was a moment in time one year. Ask Jenson Button, see any interview with Jenson Button when he talks about it, and you go, the fact that he knew that car was that good when he took it out on the test and come back and went, yeah, that's the car
That's pretty
right there.
good, yeah.
Yeah, don't change it. So, but no, we digress again. Honda.
Yeah.
Um,
But
yeah, it's just an odd move again. But like you say, they do what they do, and they're it's one of those. You've got to respect them for doing what they do.
yeah, because of course we know they had a bit of a horrible period with McLaren where I feel there
Yeah,
was not a lot of support from McLaren towards Honda, and it took Honda leaving for McLaren to sort out their own issues, but then Honda
yeah,
found their own issues and resolved them with what was then Toro Rosso, and obviously then going to Red Bull and things like that. But
yeah,
yeah, Honda have really, they've really come along in the last few seasons, I think. And the
yeah.
fact
You sort of wonder, but
they're now multi
McLaren are kicking themselves a bit,
yeah,
for sticking at it. But the thing is, it's a bit like everybody wants instant success in this sport, and you can't. I don't think you can have instant success really in the sport unless obviously you've got, your father's a billionaire and chucks money at you left, right, and centre. But even then, it's proving it, with Racing Point that they're not at the top. Even though they got a
no.
win, they're still not. They're a midfield team. Sorry.
Hmm. And that's a good point actually with the engines actually. Honda and Mercedes are the only two teams out there, engine suppliers even, who have won with two different teams in Formula One since the hybrid era began. So of
Yeah,
course, Honda have won it now with Red Bull and AlphaTauri, and
yeah,
Mercedes power units have won it with the Mercedes team and of course Racing Point last year. So
yeah,
Renault still haven't won, even though Red Bull have won with Renault power units. Ferrari haven't won with any of their customer teams.
yeah,
Certainly very interesting. But
yeah. Yeah, sorry, go on, Jakey.
no, I was going to say, long story short, with Honda, uh, their 2022 engine, which was originally designated for 2021, is now being brought back to 2021 because Honda has decided it's leaving. That's the long story short.
Right,
But
okay.
I think they're hoping to go out in a blaze of glory, and hopefully that's figurative and not literal.
Oh, I think I quite like the other one, where it go on a blaze of fire.
Yeah,
No,
crossing the line in Abu Dhabi or something like that, just on fire.
yeah, yeah, it'd be great.
Oh,
But no, I mean it's going to be an interesting season to see how that all pans out with the manufacture of the engines. I mean, I'd love to have a look inside of one of those Mercedes engines to see how it
oh,
actually works.
I think all the teams in F1 would, and all the
No,
fans and
no,
everyone.
it's just the fact they have these really small pistons, and I'm going to go technical, but all these
Oh no.
tiny flat pistons and all that. It's engineering pornography for me, and I love it. So I find it that side as fascinating as the racing. So it's that's when you become a bit nerdy.
Oh, you
So.
have to be.
But I've
But
been in the nerd game all my life, so, I like engineering. So. But anyway, there we go.
yeah.
Sorry, Jake, I was
No,
interrupting you.
no, you weren't interrupted. You're adding pretty good points on this. But let's talk about Ferrari, shall we? Ferrari are obviously hoping to upgrade from where they finished in 2020.
Yeah,
2020, as we know, was a bit of a rough season for Ferrari. Obviously, dropping back from, what was it, P2 in the championship in 2019, where it's still questionable as to whether they did anything illegal, but it's suspected they did, or whether it was unsporting or whatever. There's no proof of anything. The FIA haven't released anything to the public, at least, about it. And as you know, we are the public. We are not people who get inside knowledge of Formula One. We just read up on the public domains. And yeah,
well, it's because Ferrari have such a stranglehold over F1 because everybody says that without Ferrari being in F1, it's not F1. Um, I can sort of see that, but they get more money than anybody else. They have these. I mean, if a McLaren had done what they had done, that information would be in the public, I reckon, because I think it's just, and I think that was, they took their punishment on the condition that information wasn't released to the general public, and they sort of it's not like the mafia, but yeah, they just have a stranglehold over F1 because Ferrari's a beautiful car, and nobody wants to see them in there. So, but you're right, they dropped down when that thing that they hadn't have done, was taken away from them. All of a sudden, the car's not performing.
Yeah, and I will say, although it did affect the customer teams of Ferrari, it didn't seem to affect them as much as Ferrari, shall we say.
Yeah.
I think Alfa Romeo and Haas, they both lost something like 0.3 a lap.
Yeah.
Which is obviously still a lot in Formula One, but it's not quite as much as Ferrari losing 0.6 to a second, depending on which track they were on,
Yeah.
So
that really would have pissed the fans off,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, yeah, beautiful cars. They always are beautiful cars, I think. So.
Yeah, but going forward into 2022, of course, we've got the engine freeze, which basically the teams or engine manufacturers can do whatever they want to do to their engines up to the first race of the 2022 season. So, and then from that point on, there is an engine freeze, which is going to go through to the new engine regs. I believe they're 2026.
Yeah, I don't know. Top of my head.
I want to say 2026 either way, but
Let's say that.
I'm sure if somebody knows, they'll let us know in the comments below.
Yeah.
But yeah,
one of the people who watch this will tell us.
Yeah. The thing is, with the comments, I'm expecting to explode with lots of Formula One fans telling us how wrong we are with our opinions and all that other stuff. But
exactly.
But yeah, I will say one thing that's quite interesting, that both Ferrari and Renault were fairly well against the engine freeze idea, because of course it was mainly raised by Red Bull as they were taking over the Honda unit. Red Bull don't obviously have the funds and the finances compared to, say, Renault or Ferrari or Mercedes to keep updating and updating and updating. So they wanted an engine freeze so that, what they inherited from Honda was essentially what they were going to stick with until the new regulations.
Yeah.
So, yeah. For Ferrari and Renault to say, we're against this, we don't want this to happen, what's the point? It means we can't then catch up to the likes of Mercedes or potentially even what Honda have done, because although we we think we know as fans. The fact is we don't know exact figures and all that other stuff. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But what I find interesting is the fact that Ferrari and Renault then did agree to it. Suggests to me that both Ferrari and Renault have got to be fairly confident in their 2022 onwards power units.
Yes, they wouldn't do it to cut their own legs off. Put it that way. It's like you said. There's things you don't know. There is horse trading going on, the back deals, and I'm not saying money's passing hands in a bad way, but there will be. Yeah, it's like you say. It's obvious that there was a deal done because of they changed their mind, and because Ferrari would have been rightly screwed if that rule had come in, because they're going to sit there with how many horsepower less in their car, and however good your chassis is, you just need power, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, we know they got two pretty solid drivers this year, and I think this sort of brings us on to a good point with driver lineup, doesn't it, really?